Hello and welcome to this channel, Education and Democracy. Please do click on the like below and the subscribe below, and please do share, because I think the messages and discussions that I will be having on this channel are profound and important to everybody and anybody who's interested in our democracy and in our education system and how those two things come together. My name is Kevin Lister. I was a maths lecturer at New College Swindon, and I was fired for not referring to a female student as a male student. Because I didn't do that, I was then referred by New College Swindon to the Disclosure and Barring Service and put on the Children's Barred List. The Children's Barred List was set up in the aftermath of the Ian Huntley murders of Jessica Wells and Holly Chapman, to prevent the most odious people in society from gaining access to children. So I now find myself on the barred list. I now find myself at the same level in society as these worst possible offenders. So what I want to do today is just give you a brief background of my case and cases, how they've arrived, and what I think the significance is behind these, and why I think everybody needs to take a real careful review of what is happening. And then when all that's said and done, I never like to see an opportunity to teach maths go to waste, so I'll always finish these discussions with a few interesting maths questions. So here goes. Let's have a look at the cases and the background of what happened in my case. So I started teaching at New College Swindon in August 2020. In September 2021, at the start of my second year teaching at the college, I had a student A we will call her, and student A sent me a message on Teams to say that she now wanted to be referred to as a male name, and said if I do the same, then it will be very helpful. So my immediate reaction was to raise a safeguarding concern. I asked 3 questions on the safeguarding concern. Question 1 was, did we have parental consent to refer to her as a male? Was she making an informed decision? And the third question, was there a risk that she would self-medicate with testosterone, and how did that fit with the college's drug policy? My safeguarding concern also referenced the Kira Bell case, and it referenced the academic attainment that student A was having at that time, and asked if her decision to present as a male could in some way be related to her academic attainment. The response I got from the safeguarding officer when I spoke to her nearly dropped me through the floor. Her response on the first question was that it was college policy not to tell the parents. She could not answer, because she never asked, the question of the student, was she making an informed decision? Nor did she know if she was about to self-medicate with testosterone, nor how that would interface with the college's drug policy. She couldn't care less about the Kira Bell case, and even less about my student's academic attainment. All the college was interested in was not telling the parents. The advice that the college gave to student A after I raised a safeguarding concern was to tell her how to go about changing her gender on the college system. That was the full extent of that safeguarding intervention. I was told when I raised the safeguarding concern that that decision had already been approved by management, and if I raised the question any further, there would be no change to that decision. So I ended up having a brief conversation with my student at the end of a class. I explained to her that this was dangerous, it was ill-considered, and that she needed to make sure she was not being pushed into it by anybody else. that conversation was in the context of a girls' maths competition that was coming up, and my student was questioning whether or not she should do it. I encouraged her to do it. She subsequently entered the girls' maths competition, which led me to the belief that she was reconsidering the fact that she might be a boy, and actually more coming to terms that she was actually a girl. So I never socially transitioned her. There was no instruction from the college, and I would have imagined that something as serious as that would be instructed in writing. No written instruction, so no social transition. Student A enters the girls' competition, so I assume that she now is having second thoughts. Later on in that academic year, in January 2023, her friend, student B, waits behind after class and instructs me to refer to student A as a male. I explained to her that I'm not going to do so, that I think it's dangerous, I think it's ill-considered. I've considered that if she as a friend was trying to help her friend, student A, then it would be better to help her with her homework and so forth and get her back into class. And I tried to give the fullest reasons why I was not going to support student A's belief that she was a male. Student B then put a complaint in. The complaint said that I was not accepting that student A was a male. And that instigated an investigation which I was not told had actually started. Around about the same time, or about a week or two after that, there was a transgender awareness training course in the college. And the person running the transgender awareness training course was another college lecturer, female college lecturer. She gave her credentials and expertise for running the course by claiming, or by stating, that her daughter was now presenting as a male, and then went on to say, in her words, that she had directly supported 4 other transgender students and was training other teachers to provide the same support that she was providing. I felt my head spinning when I was told this, and I immediately interrupted. I said, what is the risk of a false positive given the fact that the consequences are so irreversible? There was another lecturer in the course who identifies himself as non-binary and explained that the decision is not necessarily irreversible. I said to him, well, as far as I was concerned, women are going for double mastectomies and boys are going for penectomies, and as best as I know, these don't grow back, so they are irreversible. That precipitated a row. He walked off, and a complaint then went in from the trainer against me. At the same time, as soon as I left the training session, I raised a second safeguarding concern about the employee that was running the training session. I explained that the college was in a serious legal, moral and ethical dilemma, and it was effectively grooming children into the transgender cult. And until that point, it had never occurred to me that the college would actively be encouraging students to pursue the transgender ideology and pursue the transgender related medical pathways, whilst at the same time keeping parents or keeping silent to parents about these activities. That second safeguarding concern, which I presented to my boss, Amanda Spanswick, was never investigated. Instead, it was used as evidence against me of transphobia. That was referred to the LADO, the local area designated officer in Swindon Borough Council, on the 22nd of February during half term, and on the 28th of February when I came back after half term, then I was suspended on transphobia. I was suspended on the grounds of my views, that I'd expressed views on Twitter against transitioning, that I had expressed views in the training session, and that I had potentially caused emotional harm to student A by not referring to her as a male. That last accusation was the one that finally stood when it went through to the Employment Tribunal. But the claim that I had caused emotional harm was entirely speculative on behalf of the college. At no time had they ever ascertained the wishes and feelings of student A. The one conversation that the college had had with her had been in the presence of student B, who had instructed me to refer to student A as a male. So February 22, I get suspended. I raise a grievance complaint, I raise a whistleblowing complaint, I raise a complaint with the DFE, I raise a complaint with Ofsted, I refer it to the police, I refer it to the multi-agency safeguarding hub at Swindon Borough Council, and nothing happens, and I get dismissed in September 2022. So effectively 6 months to go through the disciplinary process before the college can finally dismiss me. I appealed it, and the appeal obviously got turned down. In September 2022, immediately after my dismissal, I then started the Employment Tribunal process. I started the ACAS reconciliation. It's a 3-month kind of delay period where the parties can negotiate a settlement before it goes through to the Employment Tribunal. So I started that process. There was no progress there. And then we then started the Employment Tribunal process. The problem that I had was that I am not a lawyer. I'm a maths teacher. I do not know how the Employment Tribunal process works, or employment law, or discrimination law, or anything else. And my union was the NEU, National Education Union, which is a left-wing ideological construct now. It seems to have little regard for protecting the rights of its members. The NEU very quickly withdrew their support for me because, as they said, it went against their transgender supportive policies. So I had no representation in the final meetings, and no support and no funding for representation in the Employment Tribunal. So I had to represent myself. I lost the Employment Tribunal. That was held in March 2024. And I lost it on rather strange grounds. I lost it because the judgment was that I had expressed my gender critical views. I had manifested objectionably my gender critical views to a person with a protected characteristic, my student. So the way the Equality Act works, in particular in relation to transgender, is that as soon as a person moves down the gender reassignment route, from that very first moment that they say, or somebody else says on their behalf, that they are of the opposite sex, then according to the Equality Act, they have full protection, and anything anybody says or does can be deemed as harassment, even if that person does not make the harassment claim themselves, but somebody else does on their behalf. That is the way the law works. So on the grounds that I was a gender critical person manifesting my belief, then I lost the Employment Tribunal. Now, the judgment we are now appealing, and that the preliminary hearing will be heard on the 29th of May. One of the grounds of appeal that we will be making is that the Employment Tribunal erred by not considering the gender reassignment policy that the college had, which was a manifestation of the college's beliefs. So effectively, the the issue was me manifesting my beliefs, but there was nothing in the Employment Tribunal judgment about the college's manifestation of their beliefs and my refusal or failure or objection to manifesting their beliefs on their behalf. The other reason that I lost the tribunal hearing was that I was asked, did my view change? Did my belief change that a girl could now be a boy? And I said, of course it didn't. I still believe a girl is a girl and a boy is a boy, and one can't become the other. So because I had said that, the Employment Tribunal judged that the intent of the college's gender reassignment policy was not to change my belief, because my belief didn't change. That's the most backward argument possible. My argument is the intent of the policy was to change my belief, and it was to make me act as if my belief had changed, and it was to make me act in a way that other people's beliefs would change. The fact that it did not change my belief should not be a reason to dismiss my case. So that will be the second ground that we will be appealing the judgment on. The third ground that we'll be appealing the judgment on is the college's use. The third ground that we'll be appealing the judgment on is the Employment Tribunal's use of the fact that I was placed on the children's barred list by the DBS, by the government. The DBS is basically the government. And in the judgment, it said the fact that I was on the barred list had helped the Employment Tribunal come to a decision against me and in favour of the college. So our argument in this case is that the government has prejudiced my trial in the Employment Tribunal. So we have three grounds that we are now taking to the Employment Appeals Tribunal. The skeleton argument is now being prepared for that and is now being submitted to the Employment Appeals Tribunal. That's been prepared by Dr. Anna Lutfi, and we look forward to that on the 29th of May. The other case that I've got ongoing is against the DBS, effectively against the government, and this is going through the Upper Tribunal, and this is against the DBS's decision to put me on the children's barred list. Now the timeline for this is extremely interesting. So the college referred me to the DBS on the 19th of January 2023, some 4 months after I was dismissed. So there's a big question mark as to why it took them so long to make the referral of me to the DBS. When they made the referral of me to the DBS, it was based on speculation that I had caused emotional harm to student A by misgendering her. And they made that assumption of emotional harm, again, without ever speaking to student A and without ever ascertaining her wishes and feelings. When they made the referral to the DBS, the college also did not mention the fact that I had raised 2 safeguarding concerns, nor did they mention the fact that they had not investigated the 2 safeguarding concerns. So the referral of me to the DBS was untrue, and that's part of what we will be appealing when we take the case to the Upper Tribunal. Now, 19th of January was when the referral was made. The DBS sat on it pretty much the whole of 2023, and on the 19th of December 2023, the DBS finally decided to put me on the children's barred list. Now that date is significant because that is the date when the long-awaited guidance for schools on gender questioning children was finally released. That guidance completely vindicated my course of action. That guidance said that we should put safeguarding as a number one priority, that we should not socially transition a child without parental consent, and the social transition should be as an absolute last resort, a total vindication of everything that I had said and done. Yet, on that day, despite the publicity surrounding the release of that guidance, the DBS chose then to put me on the barred list. Now, I do not know if that was just a bizarre coincidence, but it is such an extreme coincidence that it is beyond the realms of believing that it's just some random event. That this extreme argument about transitioning of children, this intense debate about the release of the guidance and the delay for the guidance, and then finally on that same date, amongst the same toxic environment, is the day that I am chosen to be put on the barred list, makes me think that it was a political decision for whatever reason. The decision somehow run by civil servants who are acting on their own volition and independently of the political masters. So we appealed that on the 9th of January, at the start of the next year, and we heard nothing from the Upper Tribunal, nothing from the DBS of any significance, until after the Employment Tribunal. After the Employment Tribunal, the DBS wrote to me to say that they believe they may have erred by putting me on the barred list. They said specifically that the things that I was alleged to have said to student A were in fact said to student B. So we wrote back and said, in which case, take me off the barred list. And then do your investigation. They asked to do an investigation. And if at the end of that investigation they conclude that I should still be on the barred list, then put me back on the barred list. But get me off it while the investigation is ongoing, and why the fundamental reason for putting me there has now been undermined by their own evidence. The DBS chose not to. They said they will keep me on the barred list. So I end up now on the barred list for no reason. The DBS then were given to the end of June to complete their review by the Upper Tribunal. When they got to the end of June, they asked for another extension to the beginning of August. When they got to the beginning of August, they asked for another extension. And then eventually they then decided to complete the review and put me on the barred list. But they kept me on the barred list on the basis of things that I had written about on Twitter against LGBT teaching in schools and against the transgender ideology and the cult of transitioning children. So that was the final reason that I have ended up on the barred list. Now, it's really important, if you are watching this and considering it, to think what it means to be on the barred list and why we have a barred list. We had the barred list. It was brought in after Ian Huntley murdered Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. It was brought in to stop the worst and most odious child offenders, child abusers, child murderers, child paedophiles from gaining access to children. A person could be put on the barred list on the basis of accusations. So if a person had various accusations against them but nothing had been proven in court or no charges had been made, that person could still be put on the barred list on the basis that prevention was better than stopping something happening later on. That means that anybody can go on the barred list, and that's what's happened to me. That a person can go on the barred list according to the law, according to the Safeguarding Act, without violating the law and without factual evidence. You can go onto the barred list on the basis of somebody else's opinion, which is how I've ended up on the barred list. Once you're on the barred list, you can do almost nothing. I am effectively under house arrest. I cannot work in my profession, teaching. I cannot help my partner run the local athletics club. I cannot drive a van for Tesco's. I cannot even mark exam scripts for Edexcel. Almost everything I try to do, I can't do because I am on the barred list. To get off the barred list, you need to wait for 25 years to appeal it through the DBS. The only other alternative is to appeal it through the Upper Tribunal. So my appeal through the Upper Tribunal has now been ongoing since January 2023. This is now May 2025. I still haven't yet got a final date for the appeal hearing. It's probably going to be another year off at least. So running through the Upper Tribunal process is at least a 3-year time period to get off the barred list. This is catastrophically against everything that we understand in this country. You can be guilty until proven innocent, and you're not actually given the chance to prove yourself innocent anyway. So this takes a Magna Carta and it throws it in the bin. So there we go. That is the essence of my two cases at the moment. The Employment Appeals Tribunal, preliminary hearing coming up on 29th of May. The Upper Tribunal against the DBS. And we have the oral hearing hopefully coming up, and we're just waiting to hopefully get a date to have the initial oral hearing, and then we'll have the final appeal hearing. Now, why are these two cases so important? Which is the point I made at the beginning. The case that I lost in the Employment Tribunal, the behaviour of the college, and the arguments that we will be appealing in the Employment Appeals Tribunal are vitally important. They extend far beyond the mere debate of transgenderism. What this is fundamentally about is the ability of teachers in the education system to teach facts, to be able to have debate and discussion in the classroom, to be able to ensure that young people grow up learning how to accept criticism and how to critique others. What we have ended up with in this country is our education system is being perverted to support the demands and the discriminatory motivators of cults. Now, at the moment, we have got the crazy transgender cult. I mean, you could not imagine a more crazy cult coming into schools. A cult that says that a school should encourage a child to think they are of the opposite sex. A cult that encourages a child to start taking easily available cross-sex hormone treatment, and to do so with no medical supervision. A cult that will lead to the sterilization of a child. A cult that justifies it all because if you don't do this, a child will commit suicide. So it's a cult that brings suicidality into the classroom. It goes against everything that I came into education for. It goes against everything that my grandparents, who were teachers, taught for. In my family, we have a culture, a history, proud family history of teaching. And my grandparents would never believe that something like this could ever come in to the schools. Now the question is if we can allow something as ridiculous as this, and if our rights to teach, our rights as teachers to teach are undermined, and we have to pervert our behaviour to support some crazy cult, then what else can be brought into the classroom against our will and against our better judgment? This is a fundamental assault on education. And without education, with a perverted education system, we will struggle to have a functioning democracy. Never have we faced anything as significant as this in terms of the challenge that we face today. Tied in with that is the situation with the DBS. As I said already, the DBS is a branch of the government. And effectively what I'm having to do is fight the government. The DBS, through the government, can go into everybody's pocket, every taxpayer's pocket, and pull money out to keep fighting their case. I have to rely on the goodwill of those people who have supported me through my crowdfunder. Never have we seen such an overt case of a government supporting a cult, of using taxpayers' money to support a cult that damages young people, that breaks apart families, that destroys education systems, that undermines the fabric of society, that undermines law and justice. Never have we seen such a cult as this. And it is beyond belief that this cult has been supported and funded by the government. And there is an audit trail, and in the next couple of videos I'll go through the audit trail that shows how the Department for Education worked with transgender organisations starting in 2015 to bring the transgender cult into schools, to capture young people in schools. And in the process of doing so, the one thing that we are taught as teachers from day one of our training to put above everything else is safeguarding, and that one lesson to put safeguarding above all else has been completely and utterly undermined and shattered, as has the confidence in our education system. So these are why these two cases of mine are so important. It is about the fundamental right to free speech, and it is about serious, dangerous government overreach and trying to stop that government overreach. So I would like to finish off here by thanking everybody who has contributed so far to my crowdfunder, and I'll put the link down at the bottom. If you can contribute further, please do. Please don't contribute if you can't. If you can't contribute financially but you do want to contribute, then please do share this video. Do please subscribe. Do please follow my the emerging story, as I will publicise it as best as I can on Twitter and on my GoFundMe. But let me put you under no illusion that this is absolutely fundamental to our education system and to our democracy. So I always like to finish on a happy note, and because I'm a maths teacher, I always like to finish off with a nice bit of maths. So I'll now move over and start having a look at some interesting maths problems. So thank you for listening so far, and I do hope that you enjoy some upcoming maths problems. Even if you are not a maths student, even if you've never done any maths, do please get into the subject. It is just the best subject of all. It is about thinking properly. It is the antidote to this awful mess that we now face. So until the next video clip, which will probably be next week, then I bid you farewell and over to some maths questions. Thank you very much. Okay, and welcome to some maths now, and the questions that we're going to look at is from this website here, Matters Maths. Highly recommend it. There's the link, and Matters Maths have got underneath this heading here, practice papers, a whole range of really interesting and good quality questions. And we're just going to take a few questions here from this SPA question here. The questions are along the lines of those that would be asked in an entrance test for the likes of Warwick University or the Russell Group type universities for students who are looking at doing maths there. The guy Mad as Maths has got this lovely statement here. The aim of these papers is to give extremely able students the very best in difficulty. So these are all good, solid, challenging questions, and they're designed to make you think about your mathematical processes and get you thinking mathematically. So highly recommended. The one thing is, it says here, solutions. So you've got the questions here. You've got the solutions on the website. Unfortunately, the solutions are not available, which makes the questions a little bit more fun. So when I give you solutions, I may or may not have them right. So if I've made a mistake, do please correct me. Add your comments, or add anything in the comments below. Unfortunately, Mad as Maths, the guy that ran the site, died with COVID. So I don't think there ever will be any solutions. But nonetheless, they are great questions. So we're going to have a look at paper A in the SP practice papers. I'm just picking 2 questions at random from this. Maybe not quite at random. 2 questions that I thought were quite interesting questions. I'm going to look at question 10 first of all, and then I'm going to look at question 19. So here's question 10. The acute angles theta and phi and alpha satisfy these equations, and then it asks us to express theta plus phi in terms of alpha. So what we're looking for in terms of what we're trying to get to is we're looking for something that says theta, wrong pen, we're looking for something that says theta plus phi is equal to some function of alpha. So that's kind of what we're after at the end of the day. Okay, now the reason I put this question up is because when I looked at it, I took a bit of time to actually work out how to go about it. And the reason was that whenever I see any question like this, my immediate reaction is always to try and get everything in terms of the same terms. So where I've got the 2 alphas, my immediate reaction here was to think about writing this sine 2 alpha as 2 sine alpha cos alpha. So I figured when I first tried this to get all the alpha terms together, and likewise over here, the cos 2 alpha, I figured I would write this as cos squared alpha minus sine squared alpha. And I figured if I made these substitutions, I get everything in terms of alpha, and I could then try and do something clever to try and get this value out here. And this was wrong in terms of the approach that I took. I couldn't get anywhere with that at all. After a lot of sort of scratching my head and finding depths of frustration, I then thought, well, actually, how can I bring theta and phi together? Well, the obvious way when there's tans around is to think of tan theta plus phi, using my compound angle formula, is tan theta plus tan phi divided by 1 minus tan theta tan phi. Now that's easy now, because all I've got to do is then just come back up to these 2 equations. I'll just do this in red and make tan theta and tan phi the subject. So tan theta is equal to tan alpha divided by 4, and tan phi is equal to 3 sine 2 alpha divided by 5 plus 3 cos 2 alpha. Now, all I've got to do now is substitute these expressions into this formula and make the theta plus phi the subject by doing tan to the minus 1 of both sides. So what I now get is theta plus phi equals tan to the minus 1 of tan theta, which is tan alpha divided by 4, plus tan phi, which is 3 sine 2 alpha divided by 5 plus 3 cos 2 alpha all divided by 1 minus tan theta, which is tan alpha divided by 4, and tan phi, which is 3 sine 2 alpha divided by 5 plus 3 cos 2 alpha. And there's my solution, basically one line of maths. It took me quite a while to spot that, but one line of maths is all that's needed. So my function on the right hand side looks a mess, but just because it's a mess doesn't mean to say it's wrong. And there's my function of alpha on the right side. So theta plus phi is equal to this function of alpha. I've just got alphas on the right hand side, and that's now as per what was asked for by the question. Now, if you've got any better ideas, or you can find out any way of simplifying this, then do feel free to let me know. And again, let me know in the comments. So, nice little question there. It looks difficult, but incredibly simple, assuming that is as simple as we can get it. Now, let's have a look at the next question in this same paper. Question 19. So I've selected this question because it really gets us thinking about the structure of our derivatives. So take a second, first of all. You might want to pause the video and just have a read through this question, see what it's trying to get at. So what we've got is this function here, x as a function of z. And then we've got this derivative on next to it. The second derivative of y with respect to z is y, a function of y and a function of x. So we've got a mix of y's and z's and x's. So, and we're trying to get down to this, effectively, this differential equation down here. So what do? Well, let's do all the obvious things first. We can differentiate the x with respect to z, so we can get dx dz is equal to 1 divided by z plus 1. Okay, we can simplify off here a little bit, because if I raise both sides to e, then I can now say that dx dz is equal to 1 over e to the x. Okay, so that's just, if we just come over here, so if x is equal to ln z plus 1, then e to the x is equal to e to the ln z plus 1, and e and ln are just inverse functions, so that finally means e to the x is equal to z plus 1. And effectively all I've done here is I just substituted the z plus 1 for the e to the x in this derivative. Okay, now let's come back to this this derivative that we've got, this kind of crazy looking differential equation, where we've got d2y dz squared equals y divided by e to the power of 2x. Now, what is nice about this question, as I said at the beginning, is that it really makes you think about your derivatives and the structure of your derivatives. Now, d2y by dz squared is a shortcut way of writing this. Okay, so what we're basically saying is that we have got a tiny amount of this derivative divided by dz. Okay, when we think about a derivative, if I just go off on a slight tangent to the side here, when I talk about a derivative of say dy by dx, what I mean is a very small amount of y divided by a very small amount of x, and that very small amount goes down to 0. When we get down to 0, then we have this derived function. So we can think of this derivative as either a fraction, a tiny amount of y divided by a tiny amount of x, and when we get down to this tiny amount of x being almost 0, then we have this derived function, the derived function of y with respect to x. If we have the second derivative, d2y dx squared, we often see it written like this in the textbooks. Okay, what that fundamentally means is we're taking a tiny amount of this second derivative, divided by a tiny amount of x. So again, we think about this in terms of a fraction, and that's what we're doing down here. Okay, and what I'm just going to do as well is I'm just going to put a box around this because I'm probably going to be using this expression here as we go through the calculation. Right, so now I've now got the derivative with respect to z of this derivative is equal to y divided by e to the 2x. So I think, well, what can I do here? How can I bring the x's and the z's together? Well, what I can do is I can multiply the inside of this derivative by dx. Let's just change that. That should be a dz there. By dx divided by dx, which is equal to y divided by e to the 2x. So here, this is like the numerator of this fraction, and I'm just multiplying this numerator by 1 dx divided by dx, that's just 1. And I can now swap things around to write now dy dx dx dz is equal to y divided by e to the power of 2x. So just swapped these terms in the denominator around, so the dx and the dz are swapped round. Now what I got initially was dx dz equals 1 over e to the x. And here's my dx dz down here. So I can now rewrite this as a derivative with respect to z of dy dx times 1 over e to the x, which is equal to y divided by e to the 2x. Okay, now just to make life a little bit easier, when I differentiate, I'll write that as e to the minus x. So I'm now going to differentiate this term on the left side with respect to z. I've got one thing times another. So we can use the product rule. And to remind you, with the product rule, if y is equal to u times v, and u and v are functions of x, then the derivative dy by dx is equal to the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. So we can now differentiate the two terms in here with respect to z. So what we're now going to get is the derivative with respect to y, d2y dx dz. So I'm differentiating this first term with respect to z times the second term, e to the minus x, plus the first term, dy by dx, times the derivative of the second term. I'm differentiating that with respect to z, and this is all equal to y divided by e to the power of 2x. Okay, so let's have a think about this. d2y dx dz. I won't do too much with that at this stage, other than write the e to the minus x as 1 over e to the x, just to make it a bit tidier. dy dx, there's nothing much I can do with that. But what I'm now going to do is differentiate this term here with respect to z. So I'm going to differentiate this with the chain rule. So the e to the minus x becomes just simply e to the minus x. And then I go in and I differentiate this minus x with respect to z. So I get minus dx dz equals y over e to the power of 2x. Again, I'll just tidy up this thing here on the left and we'll see if we can simplify it. So I've now got d2y dx dz 1 over e to the x plus, well, that plus becomes a minus because I've got a minus in this term here. So I now get dy dx 1 over e to the x times dx dz, which equals y over e to the power of 2x. Now here's my dx dz, and we said at the beginning, I'll just go back up to it, we said that dx dz is 1 over e to the x. So we can change this to 1 over e to the x. So now we get d2y divided by dx dz times 1 over e to the x minus dy dx 1 over e to the x times 1 over e to the x becomes 1 over e to the 2x, which equals y divided by e to the 2x. Okay, we can tidy up a bit. We can multiply through by e to the x, which gets me now d2y dx dz minus dy dx 1 over e to the x equals y divided by e to the x. So say on this line I've just multiplied through by e to the x. Okay, this is starting to look encouraging now, and we can just focus our attention to this first term, and we can do the same trick as before. I've got d2y dx dz, and what I'm looking for, if we go back to the question said I want dx squared on the denominator. So to get a dx squared, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by dx, so it's basically just 1, minus dy dx times 1 over e to the x is equal to y over e to the x. Okay, same trick as before. I can just swap things around here, so I can swap this dz and this dx around at the first term. So I now get d2y dx squared, so I've got my second derivative, times dx dz. Then all the other terms haven't changed. So we now get this guy. Now dx dz is 1 over e to the x. This is our equation from the beginning again. 1 over e to the x, and so that can substitute in, and we've now got d2y dx squared 1 over e to the x minus dy dx 1 over e to the x equals y divided by e to the x. Multiply through by the e to the x and take the dy dx onto the other side, making it positive. So I now get d2y dx squared equals dy dx plus y, which is exactly what we were after. So we can put here QED, quodiem dictatus. So we've proven it. So beautiful question. It's a really good question because it gets you thinking about the structure of your derivatives in a way that other questions don't do. You really have to think about this idea that your derivatives are effectively fractions, and you've got to think about the structure of those fractions. So let me just scroll slowly through this, and I'll be as quiet as I can while you take on board the build-up of the solution. A great question. So any comments you want to make on that, put them below. If there are particular questions that you are stuck on, then do, and you would like me to have a look at them, then do add those in the comments as well, and we'll see if we can get stuck into any of those. So these should be questions that interest to maths students, to maths teachers, or anybody who just likes a bit of maths. But again, if you have good questions that you're stuck on, then do feel free to add them. And next week we'll have a look at something else. And till then, I'll see you.